Yeah, I think we are live now, right? Hello.
It's not showing live yet. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, some can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's live there.
Yes, it's showing
Oh, I
live
said
here.
it. Oh,
Kenny.
okay. Maybe it's my. Let me refresh.
Okay. Kenny,
Yes, it's live. It's live.
it's live, right?
It's live.
So, are you guys seeing that the slide is changing, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you. So, welcome once again, guys. So, I won't waste much of our time, so I'll try to go straight to the point, right? So, API development plays a crucial role in modern software development. It involves creating application programming interface that allow different software systems to communicate and interact with each other. So, in this context, we may have different application plug into our API. Either third party want to subscribe to our API or mobile app or the web. And the reason why API is very important in any software development is because it is uh, it is very useful and then we can reuse it. So many applications can plug into it at the same time. So it enables seamless integration between different software systems and it facilitates the exchange of data and functionality between applications. It promotes reusability and modularity. Instead of creating different software for each app, so you can have this application programming interface whereby all our applications we plug into it. So we'll be using C Sharp as programming language for this course, right? Which I believe is one of the top programming language used all around the world to create software. So the first thing is to get the application installed, which I believe you guys said you have installed it. Download and install the latest version of Visual Studio. Open Visual Studio, select create new project. So that these are just the steps to follow. And then the basic setup is just open the project in Visual Studio, configure the project settings and dependencies, create a new controller and handle the API request, right? So for some of you that have created, I mean, that have installed Visual Studio, I believe that do you guys try to even launch it at all? I,
What do you say?
Yeah.
So the launching is what I'm having issue with. Yeah. Can you hear me, Samuel?
yes, I can hear you. So NS is having issue with launching it, right? Okay. So we might need to look at that. All right. I'll move on to the next slide. So maybe I'll share this slide with you guys so that you can just read about it. So that you can transfer a set of architectural principles for designing network application. They commonly used in API development to create web services that can be easily. It's just an application deployed to the cloud environment whereby anybody can access it, right? So without being restricted. However, there might be some kind of API security set for you to reach each endpoint. So as we proceed, we talk about API security as well. So another topic that is very important in API development is dependency injection. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection is a design pattern used in API development that allows separation of dependencies from the code that uses them. It's coupling between classes and promote modular testable code. So it allows us to decouple our application in the sense that so if a method is doing a particular thing, don't jam pack it with another thing. Let it be decoupled. When if you design your application that enable that support decoupling, to add or to modify such app will not be difficult and the code will be very easy to maintain. So you can read further about dependency injection. So design pattern. So in software development, we have different patterns that you can use to. These are just the few out of so many design patterns that we have. We have factory method, singleton, repository, and dependency injection. So design API structure. When designing API, it is important to consider the overall structure and organization of the endpoint. This includes determining the hierarchy of resources and defining clear paths for accessing the manipulating data. So endpoints are the URL through which clients can access the API. Point to a specific functionality or resources. It's important to define endpoints that are intuitive, consistent, and follow industry best practice. For example, there might be we have different endpoints. There could be an endpoint to register customer. There will be an endpoint to fetch customer detail. There will be an endpoint to do all different kind of things that your API support. Depends on the application you are building. So data models define the structure and format of the data that is exchanged between the client and the API. For example, you have to create your data model if you are collecting just a customer basic information such as first name, last name, email address, phone number. Those are the models. Those are the information that your models contain. That's why they call it data model. It represents the data that you are collecting from it. So building API with C Sharp. So we'll be using .NET Core. So we have a different fashion of C Sharp or .NET framework. So we talk about it in this tutorial as well. So we have routing, we have request handling, response generation, security. So routing provide robust routing system that allow you to define endpoint that map them to a specific actions or method in your API. While request handling, you can easily handle incoming HTTP requests and perform action based on the request method, headers, and parameters. Some of us are familiar with this. So it depends on request methods, header. Some API require you to pass an header, and some it's just the parameter that you're going to pass. So response generation, this is what you get or what you return back to your customer or to the person that is consuming your API based on the request or based on what you have define that a particular endpoint to do. For example, the response could be in form of JSON or XML or HTML based on the client's request or based on whatever you have design your API to be. Then API security. This is the built-in security features such as authentication and authorization to ensure that your APIs are secure and protected from unauthorized persons. So I want us to take note of this authentication and authorization. Authentication is quite different from authorization. What is authentication? Authentication simply means you authenticate the user. Like, okay, this is, for example, your API will have like different functionalities, such as, and when you are authorizing the user, it means that you authorize this particular user to be able to access a particular module. For example, somebody that has user role is different from somebody that have admin role. Admin role might be able to authorize to perform some action that user crucial topic in or something that you need to consider while developing your API. So authentication and authorization, that as I think I've explained that, implement secure authentication mechanisms such as OAuth 2.0 or JWT token, that's JSON Web Token, to verify the identity of clients accessing the API. Yeah. So that this will allow you to know the person that is calling the API. Maybe it's an authorized person or it's not an authorized person. So user-based rule as well. You also have user-based rule or claim-based authorization to ensure that only authorized user can perform specific action. You have rate limiting. This rate limiting depends on how many API call or how many requests can your API handle at a go. It also supports your API to be able to be responsive to call. For example, you can limit a call per second to be like, okay, I don't want to permit more than 10 call per second. You can achieve this through API limiting. So input validation and sensitization. Validate and sensitize an all input that prevents common security vulnerabilities, such as SQL injection and cross-site scripting. So they you don't just take inputs from the customer or from the requester endpoint. So, but if you did not validate all these inputs, you could be vulnerable to security threats, right? So, but by validating all your inputs, so like that, you'll be able to allow us to. You cannot be on your computer every time. Moreover, the application will be deployed to the cloud. But you need something to be able to monitor what is going on, monitor the user activities, and every other thing that is going on with that application. Without logging, you might not be able to know what is going on. If something transpires or there is an error, it's through this logging system you'll be able to track what is going on from your application. I can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me? I believe I'm still audible. So handling authentication and authorization. So I won't be able to read everything here. So authentication, authorization. So just I will share this slide with you guys so that I just go through it once again. So testing and debugging. So it's part of our API and debugging. Definitely because we are on live session,
Yes,
right?
Sam, we can hear you.
You are on live session. Definitely we will run into into an error and we debug and fix it together. So and then API documentation is part of what you will know as well or what you will learn. So how to document whatever you have designed so that another person consuming your API will be able to understand and be able to consume your API. So let's get started. Let's go into practical session. So you click on create new project. So after clicking on create new project, this dialog box will be displayed. For example, if you are launching yours for the first time, you might not see this, right? But what you are going to do is to search for web API here, or click on this drop down and select API. And then you have these two options, ASP.NET Core Web API. Click on this, click on next. So give your project a name. Mm, what name will I use? Okay, let me just say personal record. Click on next. So when you get to the reward, it's just for it, okay, you want my API to be secured on localhost. However, it does not affect it when you get to the cloud, right? So, and then we have another option here, Docker. If you want to Dockerize your code, you can enable Docker. However, even if you did not select it, you can still add it later. But in this case, I'm not going to select it because this is just a beginner level, right? So, and this is the framework that we'll be using. I have like three different framework installed on my system. I have .NET 6, I have .NET 7, and I have the latest version of .NET, which is .NET 8. So I'll select .NET 8, then click on Create. Yeah, we have our project created, right? So let's even launch it for the first time to see what. Click on ISS space to launch. Cool. Just give it some time. It's building the code. Sorry, can someone confirm what you guys can see? Can you guys see Swagger page? Hello?
I say page rolling. Okay, customer record.
Yeah, okay, you guys can see Swagger page, right? All right, thank you. So this is just the template that came with
Yes.
the project we just created, right? So you guys should also have the same thing that just like as mine here, if you follow the instruction, just like the way I created it. So let's review the project tree and then the next thing to do. So this is I click on Solution Explorer. We have the project structure here. We have controller. We have the weather forecast that came with it, and then this is the entry point of the project. This program program files, right? And then we also have app settings.json. This app settings.json, this is where we are going to configure our database connection string and every other thing that will be static. Every other static information that we need or connection that we need. This is where we are going to configure it, right? And this is the entry point of our application, right? So every other dependencies that we will need in this application must be registered before the build of the application. If not, we are going to run into an error, right? So now let's start by adding okay, let's first create a folder called model, the project tree, right? Click on click on the project and click on add, select folder. Then this is your model. Click on this guy again, add another folder. Let's name it this folder. This is where our services will sit. So now let's create another folder for interface. So interface, right? So let's create uh, another folder for our database context. Okay. So by default, this is the controller that came with the project, right? Now I'm going to be adding another controller. We are going to add our services, and then we are going to have our model. First thing I'll be doing here is to add my account services, right? Or account service. Click on class, right? Click on that services folder. Click on class. So what type of class we are creating? This is not an interface. We just click on this, name it account. Service. Right. let's create the interface as well. Set class. So this time we are going to click on interface. Right? Class. Beg your pardon. Let's class. Right click. Add. Then control. Yeah, this is select controller. Cycle of this. Let's switch. Yeah, we have it here. Yeah. So, however, at the point of creating your controller, so we have different templates. This is like if you select this guy with read or write actions, it will create a method for you, but I'm not going to do that. I want us to create it by ourselves from scratch so that we see how it works by ourselves. I'm going to click API controller empty, like the one that is empty, then click add, and just give it. So I want you to take note of this, how this is being named, right? We have everything set up, right? Now let's launch it again to see what we have. Any questions so far? Is there any questions so far? Hello? Okay. Can you guys hear me at all? Okay. All right. Thank you, Joseph. Okay. Now let's continue. Right. So we just created a controller for that will house our that will manage our account creation right from customer end and then down to the application service. However, our controller will only be calling an interface, right? That's why we created an interface for it. So it has nothing to do with account service, right? So this is the only service, or it's just like an interface. That's what our controller will be calling. And then by calling this interface, the method will be executed, right? So let's see that in action. So the first thing I will do here is to create my model. Not class. Okay. Before that, let me create another folder. Let me name it DTO. It's something like this. So I have a class called register DTO. So inside this class, this way we define every other information that I want to collect from the customer. Let's say I want to collect first name, last name, email address, phone number, and most be by this ID. However, this ID is not going to be inside our DTO because this is just what I want to collect from the customer. So we're going to create a separate class that will handle this, where we define every other thing that will be going to the database because this is what the customer will be seeing or what the person that will be consuming the API will be seeing. So we are going to define just only what we need to collect because we are not collecting the customer ID from the person that is consuming the API. The system will automatically assign an ID or generate an ID to that particular customer. That's why we are not going to have it here. So only what we need, that's what we'll be collecting here. That's why we call it a data transfer object, DTO. Going to be a string, first name, last name, email, address, we have. So another thing you need to take note, I think maybe I don't know if you guys have read about data type and uh, how to name your variable, how to assign the variable, or how to name your variable. Look at it. In my own case, I'm using title case here, right? So the first letter I use capital letter, while in the middle I use capital letter. So instead of that to name their object like this, right? Right. So now we have what we want to basic information I want to collect from my customer now, right? So close this guy. So let's define the method here. So I am naming it dynamic first because I don't even know what I want to return to the customer first. So we say return type, right? Dynamic simply means that it's dynamic can return anything. So irrespective of whatever you are writing or whatever you are returning back to the customer. But now in this case, because I don't know what I want to even return back to the customer for now, that's why I want to pass dynamic. I want the return type to be like asset. So create, let me name create and register asset. DTO, register DTO, right? Register DTO at the payload. Payload. Yeah, now we have this guy in our interface now. So let's continue. So now we now take this interface. So this guy is going to inherit this interface, passing it here. Okay, there's the pattern. Let me take that as well as you guys should see what is happening there. So now look at it. It's telling you that it's telling us that account service does not implement interface member. So we have a particular member inside this interface, inside this account interface. And the member that we have here is this guy, register asset. By the time let's say we comment it out now, so we won't have that error again. So that error is gone. It's, it means that it's not seeing anything inside that interface. But the moment we release it or we uncomment it, so it will throw that error, which means that we must implement that interface, right? But the first thing I do is to create a constructor for it. Okay, that's our constructor. Then let me uncomment this guy. So go back to the surface. So to implement interface. So this guy has implemented this interface for us. Instead of rewriting it like it's still going to be the same thing. For example, if I take it out now, right, and I want to implement the interface, this is how I implement the interface. So that to make your work more faster, so just let the Visual Studio. It's very, very intelligent to implement the interface for you, right? Set of public task. We have the return type to be dynamic. Right? That is the name is register. Right. The error we are getting here is gone now. Now, the next error we have here is this guy. So why is this one throwing error? Right. It's saying that account service does register as saying not all code path return a value, which means that it has to have a return. We have to return something back to the person that is calling it. Right. Now, what are we going to do to it now? So we we don't have our return type yet, right? But we can do uh, let's just count. So let's return the same thing here for now. Service equals to this guy, right? Return this guy. Interface response. It's not, yeah. Because it's an asynchronous form, right? So what we are going to do here is to add async. So the error is gone, right? So please let me know if you have questions so far. Say. So the next thing is to register our dependency, right? So if you have been following rain method, this is where the business logic will be sitting. This is just an interface. The moment we call this interface, right, or any other method or anywhere they call this interface, this guy will respond. And this is where the business logic will be sitting. So the next thing is to register our thing to run, execute this guy when this interface is called. Call the method here. So let's do that. Let's register it for now. Now program start for class. So we'll be register it by calling this guy builder dot add app scope right. I account and service service. Now we just register it. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Are we all good? I want to hear from you guys. Can drop a message if you don't speak or can't see you guys. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I don't know if we can continue. Hello, Joseph.
Yes, yes, Samuel, we can hear you. I think we can continue.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
with you, Samuel.
okay, all right. Let's proceed. So the next thing we'll be doing is to go to. So the first thing is to inject our account. Definitely, we are going to get it. Credit read only I account service. uh, Account service. and then yeah, control and the constructor themselves. So we can it here that service equals to service. So just inject this right. So now this is where we want it to display on the Swagger page. Let's have it declare public asset as actual so resource yes, going to click on body. Just have it there, which is payload. Okay, we're going to do that. So let's give it's going to be uh, the route. Yeah, HTTP posts. So give it to this time. Okay. So this account service, let's call it so then pass the payload object to it. It's going to be let me declare very response equals to this type. And I want to return that and just return okay. Then pass the response. Yeah. We just have basic response and we return it back. Let's launch it and say the article. This assistant service. Yeah, this is the endpoint we just created. Can you guys see it now? I believe you guys can hear me, right? So this is the I'm going to try it out and then we are going to put a breakpoint so I'll be able to monitor when it gets to our method. I have a breakpoint here and try it out. Let me add, let's say Execute. It means everything works perfectly so far. So here we have our request. So let's check the payload, right? You see, these are the inputs. We have our address, email address, first name, last name, and the phone number. So the next thing is to write. This is where we are going to have want you to save it to the database and every other thing we want this endpoint to do when customer call it or when the person call it. So but for now, so the only thing we are just doing here is to return it back to the person calling it, right? And we have this guy. So so that's just it. Any questions so far? So I'm going to stop here so that I don't want to bombard you guys with too much of this for now. So I believe by the time we'll be meeting next time, did exactly what I did before our next class. Okay, let's have some discussion.